Oh. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. The founder of Patagonia, not the geographical place, but the clothing company, when he was younger and establishing himself, he used to buy damaged cans of cat food that cost 5 cents a can and eat that to survive. It is this dedication to high thinking and simple living whereby he was able to amass a fortune of $3 billion. And recently, what he did, despite having a family, married 2 children, this entire $3 billion fortune has been distributed to a trust. And the name of this trust is awesome: Patagonia Purpose Trust, and to a charity. And now we're thinking of a trust, like a trust fund for my children and so on. This trust is to distribute all of the profits from Patagonia, which is around $100 million a year, to environmental charities. This is most inspiring in an article I recently read. One of the most impactful comments in this article I've shared with you in the chat. I'm going to read it out loud for everyone else. Hopefully, this will influence a new form of capitalism that doesn't end up with a few rich people and a bunch of poor people. We are going to give away the maximum amount of money to people who are actively working on saving this planet. I love the fact that this fortune didn't go to his children. I'm sharing that as someone with 2 young children, because this wealth doesn't belong to a generation. It belongs to every generation. And what will every generation touch? Air, water, earth. Every generation is not going to touch an iPad, or this morning I gave Shuka an iPod Nano. Do you remember those? That was my first fancy device post Vedanta course. Not every generation is going to touch that, but every generation will touch air, water, earth. To live like the founder of Patagonia demands courage. When one is courageous, one starts to become selfless. The path of least resistance is not to be courageous, it is to be ordinary. Being ordinary, it is not to be selfish, but to think small. When one is in a community where this is hammered through all forums every day, becoming courageous, becoming selfless is normalized. Feel that in yourself. I recently heard Puja Swami Tejomayananda share that the best way to purify oneself is to listen. This is in reference to Srimad Bhagavatam. To listen to the stories and glories of divinity. Now, I'd like to put an asterisk here. There's a difference between hearing and listening. There's so much that I'm hearing right now, the birds, our kids, some sort of ventilation. Listening is when you can relate to what you're hearing. This has become more real, more personal. And for those who relate to what they're listening to even more, what do? Follow. That guidance is followed. What does the scripture offer? A script. And if you follow the script of the scripture, then one will feel divine. And so, our community, every one of us has to be active. Undoubtedly, Sri Krishna is most active in sharing a teaching in endless ways for endless seekers. I try to share the same in a 2022 way, in English referencing technology and so on. You also have to be active, to not just be a hearer, but rather to be a listener, and even better, to be a follower. And that comes by relating to what you're listening to more, to have faith that this is real and personal. In verse 18, Sri Krishna shares 13 different roles that he is playing in our lives. 13 in one verse. One can't experience this verse in 18 minutes. This verse is to be reflected upon, contemplated upon for 18 days. One of the words that we use a lot is suhrit. Hrit means heart. Su means good or large. Sri Krishna is large-hearted. The characteristic of one who's large-hearted is one who's acting out of fulfillment. See, with such rigor, us describing ourselves or others as large-hearted changes then. How do you know if you're large-hearted or not? That you live, you have relationships without expectations. You live with people, you relate to people without using them to complete yourself. Incredible teachings. This continues in verse 19. Tapam yaham aham varsham nigranam yutsrajami cha amritam cheva mrityuscha sadasach aham arjuna. The word aham is used many times. Aham means I. It is the sense of I that we have. If I came to your office right now, to your home, and asked you, who are you? What is I? We'll begin to describe the body, the mind, the intellect. But Sri Krishna is encouraging us to go deeper than living. Body, mind, intellect are living. This I is life. Living is a verb, it changes. Life is a noun, it is unchanging. Sri Krishna shares, I am heat, referring to the sun. And I am Varsha, referring to the rain. There's a lovely portion in Pujya Swami Chinmayananda's commentary that I'm reading out to you. The influence of the sun controls the fields of experience of every living creature on the globe, since it controls the climatic conditions. If the sun were to send out a few more degrees of heat, the entire flora and fauna of the world would change. So too will be the transformation, complete and total, of the entire look of the world if the sun were to withhold even a few calories of the heat that it is radiating now. Immediately, there would be a march from the North Pole to the South Pole towards the equator, driving men and beings towards the central belt of the globe, causing more intense sorrows of overpopulation and lack of sufficient food. Is this accurate? Extremely accurate. You know, these books that I'm reading and you're reading, these were taught in the 50s and 60s, were documented in the 70s and 80s, like 50 years ago. And that's why I describe Pujya Swami Chinmayananda as a rishi, one who can see what we can't see. Sri Krishna is the one who loves the environment. He continues, Nigrahami utsrajami. I'm the one who holds, I'm the one who releases. Nigrahami utsrajami. Please don't lose track of the big picture. He's trying to share all of these verbs. The foundation of them is existence, awareness, joy. Making this relatable, I've shared with all of you in different ways. Nigrahami is the one who disciplines. And wherever there's nigraha, what follows? Anugraha, which means blessings. Nigraha facilitates anugraha. Those who live by discipline, they are blessed. Where did that blessing come from? Their own willpower, their own minds. Amritam cha eva mrityuhu cha. Shri Krishna shares, I am being alive and I am being dead. And the implication of this, because many of us, we don't reflect so much on dying and death. Those who are 20 years old right now, you don't even think about that for your grandparents. The implication Sri Krishna is trying to share is all that we experience is relative. Being alive, being dead, that is indicative of change. So it's all relative. Now, logically, if there's a relative, there has to be a absolute. And that comes out in the final quarter. Shri Krishna is Sat and Asat. Sat here means existence. Asat means non-existence. That's a pretty wild teaching. Your existence and non-existence. What he's trying to share here is that even non-existence depends on existence. Non-existence has to exist, yes? And so in this final quarter, Prince Arjuna, think big. That the finality of all experiences is existence. You are feeling stress, anxiety, dejection towards this challenge of this war, in his case. But all are being. You, Acharya Bhishma, all of us. And if we're being, what should we be doing all the time? Smiling. This is your cue. What should we be doing all the time? Sleeping. Smiling. This notion of smiling should be irresistible, where you can't help but do this. From inspiration to application. Your application yesterday was to join in, invite friends, and spread cheer for our open home on Wednesday, September 21st at 8 p.m. I believe tomorrow is the first day of autumn, I believe. Our open home is an opportunity for all of us and for everyone you're around to deepen the notion of going from a searcher to a seeker, or a beginner seeker to an advanced seeker. One of our crew members recently created a tree of the offerings that Chinmaya Niagara, Chinmaya Cleveland share with the community, and it's spectacular. It's like every facet of society is addressed through what is being shared. So actively invite your friends to come and know what we do together. This is your application from yesterday, today. I'm going to share it again tomorrow. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be joy.